So we're really here as a gesture of solidarity to the spirit of the climate camp. It also gives us an opportunity to explain one of our fundamental beliefs, and that is that the government's plans for the kind of massive airport expansion that they are thinking of is simply not acceptable socially, economically, and certainly not environmentally. Now, such is the interest in this camp, you might find it useful to know that on top of the amazing national coverage you've received, there's a lot of interest from around the country. Now, this was yesterday's local paper from where we come from. This is the Herts and Essex Observer, based in and around Bishop Stortford. And they ran this story yesterday. It's a major story. It just shows you how this camp is rippling out to communities all over the country. Graham there, he ran the 3-year inquiry between 81 and 83, and he ended that by saying that to go beyond 25 million or to build a second runway would constitute nothing less than a catastrophe in environmental terms. And that was before we knew what we know now about the consequences of climate change. The government has given us assurances that they would abide by the recommendations of those 3 planning inspectors, but on each occasion they've reneged on their undertaking. So where are we now? Stansted has about 24 million passengers a year. That's about 1 million below the level for which they have planning permission. And that's about 190,000 air traffic movements or flights to you and I. It's the 3rd largest airport in the UK, and it overtook Manchester last year. BAA originally proposed, for this latest inquiry, removing the limit on the number of passengers, but they sensed the extent of opposition and they tried to do a deal. They tried to come to a compromise and say, okay, we'll only go up to 35 million and we'll cap it at that. Now, to put that in perspective, the airport next to us has about 67 million passengers a year. So they were saying, let's just nudge it up to about half of Heathrow's size. Because this is where history repeats itself, because as you heard earlier, despite reassurances, the existing runway could accommodate 40 or even 50 million passengers. So to put that in context, just short by, okay, a reasonable margin, but not that far short of what Heathrow is today, and that's on one runway at Stansted. Horrible visitation that we made on people's homes for the benefit of the camera to try to get across the problems of blight on homes. Maggie?
Well, basically, we've lost, our community, the basic community local to the airport. We were informed 5 years ago that the BAA wanted our properties and our land, and they were going to take that over by offering people get out to go. Some people can't go who are just on edges, and there's different schemes going about. But basically, it's resulted in all our community being completely split up. We've lost all our sort of social activity in our local villages, because obviously we haven't got the amount of people to put forward on other things like looking after our local village hall and things like that. So it's very much that. And our listed buildings that we've become very fond of that were in our village are all now rented out to BAA people, and basically sort of falling into disrepute. And well, the roofs are falling off. Well, actually, we have a hell of a lot of people. We have people staying there, like 6, 7, 8, 10 different people, air hostesses and God knows what else. We have the houses not being looked after.
So Maggie does actually mean disrepute, doesn't she?
Yeah, sometimes. But it's just basically, it's like being taken over basically as a village, not just a village, but the villages further on, because there have also been other noise issues. There's 3 villages, but there's noise. Some people, if they fall into a certain noise category, they can have their homes bought back in a different scheme. So you've got lots of different places around locally that are taken over. So really, it's just not the same place. There's very, very few people living in my village, for instance, in Broxted. Everybody's gone, literally. Some houses are empty, the rest are rented out. That's the way it goes. And it's like that in several other villages. Half the village is empty, half of them they can't sell. So it's just a terrible, sort of black cloud that sort of descended on us. But luckily, we're still sort of there together. and still going strong despite it all.
BAA and Stop Stansted Expansion members were at it, at the BAA AGM. Now, firstly, a lot of you will say, why on earth do people who are opposed to airport growth, why are they shareholders? We had to have a certain number of shareholders within BAA to be able to influence any BAA policies. I'm not sure what the actual number was, but we had sufficient.
It was 20 quid.
Yeah, we only had like one share.
20 quid.
Yeah, we had to have a certain number of members holding BAA shares, and that gave us then the right to be able to present resolutions at the BAA AGM. We did this during a number of years, and it was quite clear that BAA hated our guts for it. It was lovely to watch the managing director and the chairman squirm when our leader of that particular group presented our agenda, our resolution.
Alan is a member of the local council up to the council, and one of the big issues is that of surface access. Alan, do you want to just talk about some of the issues to do with
well, I think on this very briefly is that one of BAA's constant themes is that Stansted has this nice cosy airport in the countryside, which of course actually means it's very difficult to get to, particularly by public transport, and the railway from Liverpool Street is grossly overcrowded, inadequate. As a local passenger, you find yourself shunted into a siding while the fast trains go by, and all sorts of ridiculous situations. And I mean, this in a way illustrates the battle I think that we've got, and certainly at Heathrow as well, with BAA, that they want to run their business, but they want the taxpayer to pay for it. We've heard about the fact that effectively the aviation industry is subsidised to the tune of about £9 billion in terms of the taxation that they don't pay. But they also want us to pay for the railways and the road infrastructure to get their passengers there. And so the whole economics, I think, of the industry is a cowboy industry, really. Isn't it?
I want to give you just briefly some hard facts for you to cogitate over. I'm going to summarise very briefly 6 issues and pick out 3 points from each, just to give you some idea of our campaign. First one, economic impacts. BAA argues that expansion is good for the economy, for the country as a whole and for the region, yet in its evidence to the public inquiry it failed to list a single economic benefit, and of course failed to list a single negative impact. What it might have pointed out, which incidentally we took the opportunity to do, is that Stansted is dependent on low-cost travel to such an extent that only 19%, about 1 in 5, of the passengers travel on business. And that percentage would remain the same if BAA got their expansion, but would actually increase to 23% if it was turned down. Outbound leisure travellers outnumber incoming foreign visitors by 2 to 1, and the Brits spend more abroad. As a result, air travel from Stansted delivers a deficit to the UK balance of payments of £1.5 billion, and that's just Stansted. We reminded the inquiry that the government endorsed the Stern report, and I'm sure there have been lots of sessions this week about the Stern report. And yet it reconfirmed the 2003 aviation white paper, which supported the expansion of Stansted and elsewhere. Aviation, as I'm sure you've heard from others this week, is particularly polluting because plane exhaust in the upper atmosphere cause a warming that is double, or some people believe quadruple, the effect of carbon emissions alone. So it's bad down here, but it's a lot worse up there. Some more optimistic forecasts suggest that aviation CO2 emissions will equal 25% of the UK target for greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The Tyndall Centre, the climate research body of huge authority, puts it higher, at 100% of the UK's carbon allocations, and others go even higher, predicting that by 2050 aviation could be accounting for 4 times the total of climate impact allowable from all UK activities.